Well, hello everyone. You have right here, I'll talk about with bills right here, bills and discussions, and you could also look at it as to where the bills and interviews. But we have right here of this right here would be example right here of like a meeting right here. Like everybody might say that the first thing that you hear about whenever you first start working on your bills, of course, is that okay, if you have to be 18 or older just to be able to do something. I'm like, oh yeah, just to be able to buy something or order something over the phone or something like that. But really though, that would it make more sense to go ahead and yeah, that you would go ahead and write out something before you actually do something. Don't you think that it would make more sense to go ahead and write down what you're going to be thinking about doing, and maybe let's just say that if you were to write down maybe if it's supposed to be like an interview or something like that. So do you think it's best to go ahead and write down your thoughts and opinions about an interview before it actually happens, and then whenever you do have the interview, right? And like everybody might say that based on my experience, it seems like that, yeah, that, back whenever you were younger, of course, it seemed like that, yeah, the first thing that you heard about when we do talk about ordering something by a catalog or taking care of a bill, that the first thing that you saw, of course, was on the TV. It was a TV commercial, and then before you start listening to the radio, and that's whenever that you just like, okay, yeah, that so there's a number, yeah, usually you would see something like that to where that you can go ahead and the number on your screen right there, go ahead and call that number on your screen or something like that. And so usually you would see something like that. And so have right here, this is an example of an advertisement explaining the process about your email, your service and everything. But still, but when we look at this right here, you see this right here will be an example right here of me on the telephone, right, in my pajamas, and I'm sure most of us have seen this before. Talk about for electronically paid, money paid right here, and so I included right here. If we can see this right here, that I explained to everybody here that these are the three steps. You have the mailbox right here. So like, let's just say that if I'm going to be on the phone for about maybe close to 45 minutes, and then after you order something and maybe after you go over the interview or something like that, and then within 3 business days that you get something in the mail, right? And which I know, nowadays it's text messaging. And so that's why it seems like that each time you think about that, and you're always 102 that back in the old days, most of this stuff, if you're trying to take care of anything, let's just say if you're trying to call a contractor or maybe a professional to come out to fix something or to work on something or maybe get the emission passes for something, and most of the time it was over the telephone, right? And now that you have it to where it's either by email or text messaging and all that, but you see right here that yeah, that the first it seems is about listening, and and yeah, and second, is about the ability of knowledge. So if I were to highlight these right here, and like everybody might say that whenever it comes to listening to any commercial advertisements and everything, and I'll go and highlight, I'm like, yeah, if you want to highlight that in yellow or pink or whichever color that you prefer right here, but we're talking about listening right here. So every time you think about that, then you always want to know too that yeah, that whenever you do, like everybody might say that whenever you're trying to take care of something important, that you always want to know too that really that if you were to provide enough picture details right there, like you have right here, like everybody might say that whenever you're going to be looking at pictures, by the way, it seems like that kind of like everybody might say that if you could go ahead and show everybody a picture, maybe a few pictures about, what, like, yeah, for the terms of use of the service and all that. And like everybody might say that, yeah, if you go to interviews, what's the first thing that you would normally see whenever it comes to interviews, right? And the first thing that you would maybe see is maybe commercial. And with these commercials, a lot of times, those commercials are going to come on, and the first thing that you're going to probably see is something like, call us today or something like that, or just ask. And usually that's usually what you see, right? I'm like, so if you do see that, you might see something more like, call today or something like that. And So you would see those advertisements, right? And a lot of times that you always want to know too that hey, that if there's more to it, the details are on the back or whichever, but still that. But when we talk about taking care of something, know that we're also talking about that. Yeah, just to make it a little bit more simple than that. To go ahead and read these four sentences right here, and like everybody might say that. If you're trying to take care of something important for sure, that the first thing that you're going to see and try to understand is that, yeah, that call us today and you'll be able to talk to, to an operator or anybody working there at the office for further information. And so that's why it seems like that. That a lot of these advertisements might say that if they can only come on the TV maybe for only 30 seconds or so, maybe even 40 seconds, that there's going to be a picture maybe kind of like this right here that's going to be advertised. And everybody might say that, yeah, well, really, that, I don't really know if that really explains all the details, which it don't. It just means that, this is how it works and all that. But, really, that if you're going to be listening to these advertisements, even on the radio, or maybe if you're going to have the TV on late at night, and you're going to see the information, and a lot of times that there's a telephone number that they ask you to call, and so it's like back whenever I was growing up, it seemed like that most of the time that you either had to have a credit card or a way of they would send you a bill and all, but still that. But it's like every time you think about that, and you're always want to know too that okay, yeah, that in order to be able to tell, you see that number and everything, but like everybody would say that whenever you do get a bill, by the way, it sure seems that way that it goes to the next steps, right? But I guess I could maybe say is to where that how can we best tell everybody here about ways of how you can toward it whenever you do get a bill, how do you want to look at it? We see we see on TV, and then I'm like, yeah. So if you have a lot of things going on for sure, that people might even say too that you go ahead and start a conversation about something, and the first thing that you're going to start out the sentence by saying is like we see on TV or published in the newspapers are going to be reality just because of the attentions of the marketing. And so everybody might even say that, yeah, for sure, that, even though that it may seem like maybe, you found this newspaper in the neighbor's yard or something like that. Like everybody might say that, yeah, well, I found this, on the ground. It was on the lawn outside or something like that. Yeah, I found this. And so it sure seems that way. That every time you do think about that, and you always want to know too that when we speak about advertisements and everything, and you're thinking that yeah, all you really have to do is just answer a few questions and all that. But you see right here that I went I like this right here. Talk about that. Should the situation be about the gift of kindness, to where that, yeah, thanks for your time. And so most of the time, if you're going to see any advertisements on TV, and let's just say that if you're going to hear about them on the radio and maybe even broadcasting, maybe even in a local newspaper or somewhere like that, and everybody might say that based on your experience, though, that you always want to know too that when was your first time that you actually experienced that, to where you can actually take care of this, like, and yeah, I did this myself. And so you would maybe, I'm like, yeah, I did it myself. So how many of our children are going to maybe respond like that? Like everybody might say that whenever it comes to yeah, here, I'll go ahead and type right here. I'm like, yeah, down here on the bottom. I'm like, yeah, where do you want to put that? I'm like, yeah, I did this myself. So it's like, yeah, I can go ahead and just put it down here. I did this myself. Yeah. So it's really that every time you do think about that, and you're always want to know too that I did this myself with the exclamation point. So what is that really supposed to tell mommy and daddy really? And like everybody might say, that it's supposed to. It just means that you doesn't mean that you took care of it. And I know that a lot of kids might even say too that I actually feel proud of myself just because that I took care of it for mommy and daddy or something like that. But like everybody might say that every time you do think about that, for sure that somebody's going to say that hey, if the kid wants to have some practice with what's it like, just to be able to order something in the catalogs, and maybe if they want to make a phone call to talk to them about something or something like that. And people might even say too that sometimes you see it on those commercials, right? That whenever it comes to you got somebody watching the TV and everything, but really that how many children are going to say that they actually feel proud. They feel more proud whenever they can tell mommy and daddy that they took care of it. Yeah, there's been a couple of times that daddy forgot to do that this morning. He forgot to pick up, yeah, soap, or he forgot to pick up something from the grocery store this morning or something like that. And so that's why it seems like that most children might say that, is to where I did this myself. Yeah, I cleaned my own bedroom. I did it myself. And so to me, it's like, yeah, like a goal, like an achievement, right? And so really that so every time you do think about that, and you always want to know too that do you think that most children or anybody really that they might go ahead and read these catalogs very carefully, and they're going to maybe say that yeah, even if something is in really teeny tiny print, how desperate do you think that your children are going to be into reading something, and maybe thinking as to where that, yeah, well, if they got a lot going on or something like that. But like everybody say that how desperate are you into being a little bit more helpful for mommy and daddy, and you're going to go ahead and like, and here is me on the telephone, and the mailbox right behind me. This is how most servers work whenever it comes to taking care of a few of the most important matters of the responsibility are. And so like everybody might say that, do you think most kids would feel more comfortable to where that they want to impress mommy and daddy with something that they're able to take care of, of their own? And that's why it seems like that, people might say that that you see this right here, yeah, that's an example of me right there on the telephone, right? But everybody might say that there's a lot more to it than that. Just so you see a commercial on the TV, and maybe if you read an ad in the papers or something like that, but still. But people might even say that, 40 minutes or longer on the telephone is maybe just a little bit too much time. And like everybody might say that, 40 minutes, I'm not going to do that. And yeah, 40 minutes. And based on my experience, for sure, that I'll tell everybody too, to be quite honest with you, that if you're on the phone with the operator for at least close to an hour at the most part, yeah, 40 minutes or more, and so if you're going to be on the phone, maybe for 40 minutes total, and people might even say that, yeah, well, they put you on a brief hold in a lot of times, and so everybody might say that, yeah, 40 minutes, and so you might see that on the commercials to where it talks about whenever it comes to taking care of bills, right? That you see that to where that 15 minutes could save you such and such 15% or more on car insurance or something like that. But let's just say that if most interviews do last up to 40 minutes, and you're thinking as toward okay, yeah, that took a lot longer than you thought. So that's why that it seems like yeah that every time you do think about that, then you're always want to know too that that whenever it comes to yeah, I'm in my pajamas right here, but if you see this right here, that I talk about bills a lot of times, and like everybody would say that whenever it comes to understanding about yeah, you go ahead and if you're going to be talking over the phone with an operator, and they're going to tell you that okay, what's your current address, and then they get your information right here, but then they also there's an application and then also maybe a survey that's going to be included, and then they'll tell you that that originally that we were going to bill you for this amount right here. So that's like everybody might say that based on your experience though that like everybody might say that yeah, whenever you do get a bill, by the way, that the first thing that you're going to say is that hey, that let me do the math, okay, let me do the math, and then I'll go ahead and figure it out. I'm like, yeah. So everybody might say that yeah, let me do the math. Let me do the math, and then I can put on here on the bottom here is that yeah, let me do the math, and like everybody might say that okay, yeah, $100 now. Yeah, $100 now. $100 now, and then and like yeah, and like everybody might say, if you want to go ahead and maybe put an under like, and then yeah, 1,000 later. So if you were to actually do the math right there, and you always want to know too that how much would that be in percentage, and everybody might say that well, that if you've done the math correctly for sure that so if you were to actually do the math, and if you were to actually write the math, the decimals down, and actually do the calculations right there, and I'll go and zoom out right here so that we can see that right there up closely. But you see this right here, I'm talking about with the math right here, and so whenever you do think about that, then you always want to know too that whenever you do. Yeah, if you were to go ahead and like for you being the customer for sure, I'm like, yeah, it kind of looks like a puzzle or something like that. But I just want to show everybody here that if you go ahead and give them a price estimate, like yeah, like everybody might say that now and later or something like that. And so almost every time you get a bill, it's like everybody might say that usually that's usually whenever you want to just set it aside, and that's whenever you just really want to not even want to bother with it. But if you're like, yeah, let's just say if you chunk it down to different amounts right here. So like, let's just say that if you were to repeat that local tax and maybe county tax and maybe the city tax, if you were to put that down on there maybe multiple times, maybe 3 times, each time that you say 59 cents and maybe one time that you say $5.85 or something like that. So every time you think about that, then you always want to know too that yeah, if you were to actually get some practice with okay, yeah, an estimate, to where yeah, you came up with those amounts, and then you just made that up or whichever, but still, that every time I think about that, and I'm like say this to where that whenever you do the math though, and you always want to know too that you think that maybe anybody might say that okay, yeah, that whenever it comes to paying for your bills, that do you think that if you yeah, if you make an offer to where that, you offer you offer a certain amount, or that they say yeah, you come up with that with the payment arrangement using a new service, and go with the application process and everything. So like all these other businesses might say that whenever it comes to taking care of your bills for sure, that that's going to be the next step is figuring out how you'll be able to afford that, if that's something that you want to use and all that. And so that's why it seems like that maybe every election day, or maybe if it's every month or so, that you're going to see that, to where that you're going to see that whenever you do get a bill, and then not everybody's going to be happy to see that. And that's why it seems like that you're like, well, let me do the math right here, and I'll go ahead and yeah, so you look at that bill right there, and the first thing that you're going to be thinking about is that yeah, the new service, the use of the new service. New service right here. The new service. And yeah, new service right here. And then you have the account number right here, but still. So every time you look at a bill, and everybody would say that that's usually the hardest part about it is that knowing that whenever you do get a bill, that is it supposed to be just like getting your grade book. It's like whenever you start looking at your grades, like a transcript. And to me, though, I just really think in a lot of ways that when we do think about that in the 102, that don't you think that it would be best to go ahead and write down the estimates first before, I'm like, yeah, before the interview, and maybe like everybody might say that, if you maybe prefer it that way, that you go ahead and figure it out just by writing it down first, and then you go ahead and have the interview and anything that you talked about during the interview. And that is why it seems like that that every time you do think about that, and you're always want to know too that maybe not everything is going to be just like what you thought the commercials were all about on it. So that's why it seems like that yeah, based on your experience for sure that that's why you say it's just to where to just mention that just ask. And so almost every therapist or any doctors or anybody that they're going to tell you that that if you don't ask, what's the chances are that customer is going to be satisfied. And so it's like, yeah, just ask. Well, really that most of the time it's the kids that ask, and sometimes they get a no, and sometimes they get a yes, and sometimes they get a maybe. And so one thing that I would like to know too is that what does it usually mean whenever you get a maybe? And parents might even say too that that maybe equals maybe, and yeah, maybe. And so half the time you always want to know too that why do you even ask the questions if maybe most of the time the answer is always going to be maybe. Maybe what? Is it maybe so? Maybe so, or is it maybe sure, or something like that? Like everybody might say the number of times that you've had these discussions with anybody that you go ahead and talk and have communication and everything with somebody, and you're always thinking too as to where that maybe and sure is really between a yes and a no right there, yes or no. And so to me, though, it sure seems that way, everybody, that every time you remember having these conversations with anybody that you're going to be talking to, and really, what is it going to remind you of necessarily? Is it going to remind you of that look that you had on your face whenever you got your special treat? And but still, at the same time, it's like whenever you do think about that, then you always want to know too that just ask right here, but almost every time you think about that you always want to know too that don't you think these commercials should be mentioning about is this toward okay, yeah, if there is whenever you do get a bill, what's the first impression that you get by that? And everybody else might say that the first impression that I do get is that that's not something I really look forward to. It's not the same thing as getting an ice cream or a lollipop. But at the same time, that people might say that, oh yeah, for sure, you'll go ahead and you'll ask to get a treat for sure, a special treat or something like that, an award, but still, but talk about just ask right here. And so I'll put right here, like, yeah, everybody might say, especially if it's going to be in big letters right here, I'll go and put this in big letters just because that it seems like that's one of the most important topics right here. Just ask. And whenever you think about just ask, what exactly is it that you're talking about? And so everybody would say that you hear that almost all the time. To just ask. Well, you don't always get a real positive answer whenever you do ask. And so that's why it seems like, somebody might even say, even for Valentine's Day, that they're going to be afraid to ask just because of everybody. Whenever you go into those offices, and maybe whenever you go places and people are going to be talking, they don't really have time to really listen to you and all that. So, how many of us will maybe say that? Do you think that it's best to go ahead and hold up a picture, hold up a flyer in front of a few people, and they might say that, hey, that yeah, hold up a poster, and so people might say that if people won't listen to you for sure, if you're trying to tell them something, then people might say that, do you think it'll be best to go ahead and hold up a poster, like a flyer, like an advertisement or something like that? Yeah. If people won't listen to you for sure, or for any reason that you're not realizing it there at the moment about the situation, then, people might say that, do you think that it's best to go and hold up a picture of something like this, like it looks like an advertisement or something like that? And so you're always want to know too that whenever you do think about advertising, though, and want to know too that, hey, that whenever you do start a conversation, by the way, that the first thing that the kid's going to maybe like, first thing anybody's going to maybe say is that, hey, I did this myself, and yeah. So how often are kids going to maybe say that? I did this. I did this myself, and so yeah, I make this myself, or yeah, if it's English muffins or something like that, everybody might say that, yeah, do you think that maybe we all feel pretty proud whenever we're able to accomplish something ourselves? And that's why it seems like, each and every time, whenever you think about that, and you want to know too that, can you explain about that? And so whenever you do think about that, and want to know too that whenever we talk about getting in any sorts of conversation, really, and I'll go and show everybody here if this right here was supposed to be an example of a conversation right here, and at 102 that yeah, that you start talking about stuff, but if we're talking about maybe multiple pages of papers that whenever you're actually having this conversation about taking care of something, and you're always 102 that yeah, maybe if you were able to read everything very carefully, and if you were able to understand everything, and so if we're talking about maybe 4 or 5 pages that talk about something, but maybe not everybody's going to want to read that, by the way, and that's why they say that I prefer to look at a picture. Actually, I don't want to look at all this stuff right here, and that's why it seems like people might say that why do you think anybody would maybe take time to read it at least once or twice? And that's why it seems like that, yeah, well, if you really had to read it for any reason at all, just to really understand what was really going on or something like that. And so really that, every time you think about that, then you always want to know too that hey, that whenever it comes to making a phone call, and whenever it comes to taking care of something, what is that really supposed to teach anybody, really? You're back whenever you were young, and you might think that, wow, this is real, and so yeah, that's how it works. But yeah, it's real, and so really, the first thing that I'm gonna probably think about for sure is that, wow, this is real, and anything that you see on TV for sure, anything that you see even in the papers, is that you don't call that number that's advertised in the ad, or maybe if you don't follow these steps down here, maybe because of the fact that yeah, it makes you real nervous knowing about you don't really know exactly how it all works and all that, and so that's why it seems like that everybody might say that whenever you do look through those papers, and you always want to know too, really, what's one way of how to make any guest or anybody, what's one thing that you can do to make them feel more confident with taking care of something, with joining a conversation, making a phone call, or maybe participating in a party or event or something like that, and more likely though that you might say that we'll talk to your neighbors or something like that, but everybody might say that really, for sure, if there was a symbol or something like that. But what I have right here is actually with this ad right here with me on a telephone right here. So everybody might say that the first thing that you're going to probably mention, of course, is that that it all started out with is whenever I was listening to the radio. I was listening to the radio, and I picked up the paper, and then that's whenever I heard about that. And I know we all have our long stories, of course, but it sure seems that way that whenever you do think about that, then you're warned to where that hey that it all kind of started whenever you did turn on the TV on, or maybe whenever you picked up a paper or something like that, or whenever you did everybody might say that. Well, no, actually that there was you had a backpack on you or something like that. It was a letter from the teacher, and maybe something that the principal asked you to do or something like that. But really, everybody might say that, whenever you pick up the telephone, for sure. But what's one thing that you feel more confident about whenever it comes to understanding about TV commercial ads, and maybe about how it all works and everything? And everybody might say that whenever you do first pick up the telephone, by the way, and I can remember, like everybody might say that the first phone call that you made, and let's just say if it was to take care of the car insurance, or maybe to take care of something else that was important, that that you actually, I'm like, yeah, it was all about what mood that you were in, for sure. But everybody might say that, yeah, if you were to go ahead and write out, write out some instructions on how to guide you through the process. Like everybody might say that, maybe not everybody really has time to read all the details, but it sure seems that way. That people might say that the first thing that you think about is that whenever you first make the call, and whenever you first take care of the first application, and maybe whenever you get some experience with that the first thing that you really want to think about is like, yeah, getting the agenda done, getting something done. And that's why it seems like that whenever you do think about that in year 102, really, what is it going to remind you of? I'm like, well, it's going to remind you just a little bit of listening to the radio. Like everybody might say that whenever you, if you're in listen only mode or something like that you would see that. And so it's like, so every time you think about that, then you always want to know too that the number of times that you've experienced that, then you always want to know too that you don't respond right away just because. And so people might say, yeah. So like, let's just say that right up here on the top, I'll go and put right here to where that reply. I'm like, yeah. Nowadays they have this text messaging, to where you can actually respond to anybody that you're talking to, for sure, right? And people might say that, if you're going to be connecting to somebody, even on Instagram, Twitter or Instagram, that's usually what you would see right there. And, you would see something kind of like that right there, to where that you see the conversations, and, what you would normally see is something that says, I invited you to, I invite you to participate, or something like that. Invitation. An invitation. So it's like, I invite you to participate in this conversation. And so that's going to be like, like everybody might say that back in the old days, most of that stuff was over the phone. But like everybody might say that, sometimes you do accept it and sometimes you don't. But, what's one way to feel more confident, more comfortable with having conversations with anybody about stuff like that? And you want to know, too, that, well, for sure, I remember that notebook that I used to have, by the way, and that notebook in there, that notebook used to tell everybody that you start out the sentence by saying this is or something like that, and I'll even tell everybody that whenever you first wrote whenever you used to write poems and riddles and all that, what word did you first start out with whenever you first start writing? Was it this, or was it another word? Was it another word such as I am trying or something like that? And yeah, I'm like, I really don't know, everybody. I'm like, yeah, I am trying or something like that. And so every time you think about that, then you want to know too that really what word did you really start out with whenever you first started writing down, like if you had an idea about what you want to do whenever it comes to solving a problem about something? And I would watch a TV commercial, and I'm like, yeah, so you had this writing right here, but it's like whenever you think about that, then you want to know too that whenever you first started writing, a lot of it didn't really make any sense at all, and so that's why it seems like that whenever you do I'm like, yeah, like everybody might say that it don't make no sense right now, but like everybody might say that you first start writing something, and everybody might say that you see those TV commercials, but the first thing that I can tell everybody here is about the radio stations, and whenever you turn the TV on. And so it's like, yeah, especially at the last minute. And I'll even tell everybody that most of the time, if there is going to be anybody that's going to be calling a number, and let's just say that if it is at the very last minute, and I can maybe put it down here too, that if we talk about TV commercials or something like that, but talk about that, the last minute. And so more likely, chances are, yeah. I mean, I really don't know. I'm like, but based on my experience, that I'll tell everybody that if your mind's going to be kind of scrambling around, for sure that if it's going to be at the last minute, that you tell somebody that I normally don't do this every day. I normally do not do this every day, but I'm gonna go ahead and do this now. That I'm gonna go ahead and talk to somebody who has the knowledge of working with computers or using a mobile app or something like that. And so it sure seems that way. Yeah, last minute, especially at the last minute or so. But everybody might say that based on your experience, for sure, goals last minute or something. But still, it's like so whenever you think about that, you talk about for just ask right here, and just mention right here, and so whenever you do look at that, and people want to know too that, hey, that why do if you get into conversations with anybody, really talking to anybody about anything in particular, then why do you think that you always like, yeah, who's supposed to be giving the reminders most of the time? And most of the time that like everybody might say that you may see it in those commercials, or you may not see it in those commercials. But what's the key factor matter whenever it comes to looking at bills and everything? It's about the reminders. And like everybody might say that do you feel that you're going to get something done? You're going to get something done whenever you have some practice with that. About whenever it comes to, I did this myself or something like that. You have a goal or an achievement. And so people might say that whenever it comes to just ask. But if you got a lot going on, especially if you go to a gathering or a party or somewhere like that, and people want to know too whenever you first heard about this, for sure, I didn't quite understand all of it until I looked at the papers, and that's whenever I saw this ad right here, and so that's why it seems like that whenever you do think about that, and you're warned to where that you're trying to help other people, anybody understand, but still that whenever it comes to TV commercials and all that, but still that whenever I do think about that, by the way, I'm always thinking as to where that yeah, whenever you do listen to the radio most of the time, whenever you do watch TV most of the time, that you're not used to doing all that. I'm like, you're not used to memorizing a telephone number, and maybe you're not used to doing all that other stuff. And so, any opportunities that you do have, whenever it comes to learning about that, about that type of experience, right? And you're always thinking too that. Anything that's going to be on TV or over the radio, it's not real. It's all just for entertainment or something like that. But the way I think about it too, though, that number of times, based on my experience, though, that you always want to know too that what exactly do you see and experience whenever you do take care of it, maybe a little bit different from what you're used to doing it, taking care of it. And everybody might say that, most of the time it is over a credit card or over an application, something that you don't really want to deal with, right? You don't really want to bother with it. So, what's one thing that you can tell everybody about that? And people might say that, hey, if you really want to get this done or something like that, or if you really need the information about that, and for how this works, and so yeah, it seems like it's all about listening, and so in case of anybody that asks me that, yeah, for sure that you know if you're going to be talking about anything in particular, for sure that you always want to know too that anybody who's going to be listening, for sure, yeah, the first thing that you think about for sure is that that had nothing to do with what we were talking about, but still, at least you were able to, yeah. So is it really about the attention, or really, I'm like, yeah, resolve of a problem? I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to get that, yeah, coming up with a solution. Okay, resolve. Yeah, I'm just trying to get that spelled correctly there. But anyway, email could resolve in the job and all that. What if a simple click could take you directly there? And so yeah, so everybody might say that you go ahead and write down a script, right? You go ahead and write it down before it actually happens. And at 102 that yada yada yada. You get some ideas about, okay, what could possibly happen, yada yada yada. Okay, yeah, how do you think that this is going to be handled, and yada yada yada. And so that's why it seems like that whenever you do think about that, and you're warned to where that that, yeah, I guess there is a difference between what you could be, what's the possibility of something going wrong versus the right professional way of how to handle that and how to manage that. And so people might say that, yeah, number one, just to make it a little bit more simple, for sure, try to make the sentences more simple to understand, right? Try not to make the sentences in the paragraph of the sentences any longer. Yeah, put some quotation marks in there or something like that. Something about that, that long right there. And people might say that just to make it a little bit more understandable, like that right there. So yeah, so if you were to be writing about something, for sure, that what you would want to do for sure is that you go ahead and write down, like, yeah, the directions right here, but still, you go ahead and make them, yeah. Like everybody say, the directions can be longer than that, for sure, but still, that I guess what I'm saying is that just to kind of make it a little bit less confusing, though, is that if you are uncertain about how it's going to be handled and in a way it's supposed to be handled, do you think that maybe 15 words is long enough? Especially if it hasn't happened yet, and everybody might say that we don't need to have that to where that anybody who's going to be doing an interview and then find out that all the discussions and maybe anything that you were trying to talk about, all that stuff right there, it didn't happen because that's not what you said in the original copy of that recording. And so that's why it seems like that. Do you think that it's best to go ahead and make separate copies of. You go and write in a full page right here of possibly how the interview and how the meeting was handled, and then from what really was said right there. And so everybody might say, yeah, if we're talking about maybe 15 pages total of what was said and then maybe how the meeting went and everything, but still. And the way you think about it too is toward, yeah, you learned a lot of that just by looking at this ad right here, but really, electronic money paid right here, and so not everybody's really going to understand everything about that until that they've had that experience, right? So that's why it seems like that whenever you do think about that and you're learned to where that whenever it comes to taking care of your bills, and then whenever it does come to talking to somebody about it, and it's like, yeah, just mention right there, and just ask right there, and maybe sure, and you're learned to where, hey, that why do you always have to ask you after you spend about maybe 15-20 minutes talking about something? Why do you have to ask the questions? And for sure, that why do you think that everybody might say that, just ask right here? And why do you think that that they would leave you responsible for that just because that you're supposed to be the listener? There's going to be the listener and there's going to be the speaker. And I mean, I really don't know either, but I guess like everybody might say that, yeah, there's a speaker, that there's a listener and then there's a speaker. Yeah. Listen, there's a listener. Yeah, I know it. Oh, I'm trying to type it here, but yeah. There. I'm trying to type it here. Yeah, there's a listener and then there's a speaker. Why do you think, why do you think that those are divided into maybe 2 or 3 different categories? And everybody might say that, I'm like, that's not what I want to use. But still, why do you think everybody might say that, that those, they're not the same thing, even though if they do, you go ahead and had this meeting with maybe 4 other people inside of a meeting room for sure, and 102 that hey, that just mention the listener and the speaker, and but still, why is it? Yeah, you always want to know too that whenever it comes to studying about typical psychology, that you're always thinking is toward it that hey, that whenever you have conversations most of the time, that don't you think that it's good to have good listeners? Yeah, you go ahead and put an S right there. There has to be more than one. There needs to be more than one listener. So you have right there, you have a speaker. So you have so yeah, so it sure seems that way that just mention listener and then listeners and speaker, and so everybody might say, yeah, you may have more than one speaker too, but it sure seems that way that everybody that how else can I really explain it other than the fact that that whenever you do have meetings talking about stuff like that, and you're thinking as toward it, yeah, well, for sure, that there was one time where there was only one person who was writing the letter, one person who was trying to order the tickets, and one person who was trying to, work out the arrangements and everything about having a meeting about it. And so it's like, yeah, it all started out with just one person, but then after about maybe a group of 5 other people or so, they kind of decided to jump in and, but whichever. But on the other hand, that if we're talking about it, that just mention listeners and speaker, and then you have right here, just ask right here. And I always want to know too that everybody would say is toward, yeah, I ordered a standard original by the media, for requesting to have service, are these included all in one package right here? So it sure seems that way that you go ahead and have a conversation with something, but everybody might say that, not everybody's really going to know what you're talking about. But it's like, but if you say something like, yeah, well, I did this myself, and so yeah, I did this. I did this myself, and so really, that any kids might say that, yeah, I took care of it this morning. I did it myself, and yeah, I bought my own ice cream, or yeah, I got, I filled out my own application or something like that. So it's like, so everybody might say that is toward how many kids are going to say that, they actually feel proud whenever they're able to do things at their own time, and if it is buying their own ice cream, or maybe being able to pick up something, and maybe if they're able to learn how to tie their own shoe or something like that, or maybe if it is, I learned how to do the dishes or something like that. And so it's like, yeah, so anybody might say that, your kids, by the way, are maybe going to say that they feel a little bit more proud whenever they're able to accomplish something there at their own time. But still, at the same time, that yeah, I like to remember my mommy and my daddy and my cousin. For that reason, is mainly because of the things that we did together, such as solving puzzles or maybe word problems or something like that. And that's why it seems like that. Whenever you do think about that, then the first thing that you're going to maybe say is that, hey, that yeah, I ordered this, the standard original right here, and so really, that everybody might say that yeah, yet a number of times based on your experience that you might want to know too that yeah, you may have that to where that a number of times that you've done favors for any, like, let's just say if it's a donation or if anything like that. But let's just say that if it is maybe helping somebody understand the math problems or something like that, maybe if it is a bill, when you do take care of a bill or something like that, you take care of a bill and an understanding about how it all works and everything, that that the first thing that you think about is that yeah, I did this myself, and yeah, I was able to accomplish this, and so that's why it seems like that, whenever you do think about that and say you have be proud of that, right? And but anyway, I thought talk about right there, talk about for listeners and speaker right there. But still, a lot of kids might say that, yeah. Why do you always have to why do you always have to ask the questions? And you're always 102 that whenever you have conversations with anybody, for sure that you're always 102 that that do you think it's better to go ahead and write down your ideas of anything, any of your thoughts, and anything that you want to talk to somebody about? Don't you think that it's best if they don't have time to listen to you, then you go ahead and write down a letter? You type a letter, and like everybody might say, yeah, most of them are, yeah. Everybody might say that, if nobody, it seems like if nobody has time, you may think that nobody has time to listen to you. Do you think that maybe it's best to go ahead and just write it down, just to kind of get, it off your mind, and and then go ahead and yeah, and then read it to somebody. And like everybody might say that you find that to be very helpful whenever it comes to if you're trying to talk to somebody about something. And are they going to listen? And especially like everybody might say that yeah, more likely that there's going to be an adult or a doctor that's going to take time to read it, mainly because of the fact that of the situation, and also anything that comes to concern. But you might tell them that I didn't show the doctor right away, or the nurse right away, or the desk or the front desk clerk or anybody. I didn't show it right away because I didn't think that they would understand, or if anything, that I didn't, it was I was too embarrassed really to talk about it. And that is why it seems like that, if you don't have time to ask, and if you don't have time, everybody they're all too busy focused on what they really want to, what they really want to do. And that is why that you decide to go ahead and just write down, what was on the mind, what was on your mind, right? And that is why it seems like that when we do talk about that and whatnot, that the commercial ads and all that, but at the time you were thinking this toward, yeah, well, really, that you have one copy of a conversation that really happened, and you have one copy of a conversation over things, that you thought that person was going to say, and so yeah. So either way, that it seems like that you're trying to work things out, and then maybe if you're trying to take care of something, and for sure that somebody's going to tell you that you wouldn't listen, so that's why I decided to just write them down, and so that's why it seems like that. Should the situation be about the gift of kindness? Well, what does that mean? Well, that pretty much means is that thank you for taking the time and opportunity to talk to us, and so yep, and so whenever you do think about that, everybody might say that, yeah, well, do you remember if you were still in your pajamas that one Saturday morning, and back whenever you were younger, though, that, for how, if you want to tell them the story about that, to where that whenever you first got the call, and maybe whenever you first picked up the phone to make the call or something like that, and 102 that, why didn't you take care of it a lot sooner or something like that, or, yeah. We all have our reasons why we didn't take care of it any sooner, but it sure seems that way, that whenever you do think about that, and you're always 102, that yeah, for one, you're not really in charge of the situation, so it's like whenever you do, if you're going to be in class or something like that, the teacher is going to ask you to please remain quiet and seated so we can go ahead and read this and turn in that paper or anything that's due, right? And but anyway, but I thought we were going to talk about that just because of the fact that whenever it comes to ads, though, that whenever it comes to newspaper advertisements, that they talk about the electronic money and paid right here, talk about for bills, and you're thinking as toward, okay, yeah, that you know. Whenever you a couple of times that whenever you were to take care of something, and it's like, yeah, that's how it works, but was it considered your favorite? I don't really know about that, but I just know that whenever you first had that experience making a phone call, going to their websites and all that, and I can just remember that it was a difficult challenge, just because there was a lot of things, quite a few things that you didn't quite understand during the time, and you had to take time just to be able to read and understand them more. And so everybody might say that back whenever you were young, that yeah, you had to have a credit card to do this or something like that, but still, you're thinking as toward, okay, yeah, that based on your experience, though, that whenever you do get a bill, and 102, that is toward it, the best way of how to handle that for sure. And you 102, that is toward it, yeah. The best way of how to handle any bill for sure is that you have to look at it just totally different than what it really is, or just to kind of get an idea of, okay, yeah, here's the bill, and so yeah. Everybody might even say that, one way you can take care of bills for sure, they might say, yeah, you go and keep it on file, and go ahead and keep it, and then, keep it, and then, anybody who needs to have a copy of it and all that, but still, you're always 102 that whenever you do get a bill, is it always a good thing or is it a bad thing? And everybody else might say that, well, usually it's a bad thing, but the only time maybe it's really a good thing is making sure that the service. Yeah, whenever you do get a bill, by the way, that the first thing that you can acknowledge is to where that yeah, you whenever you get a bill, that information is being processed. It's being processed and it's working, and they got your information and any service that's provided to you, and that's just for how it's managed, right? But anyway, talk about right here with the bills right here, but yeah, 40 minutes and all, but still. But whenever we do talk about commercial advertisements and all that, really, what have you really learned about the process? And everybody would say that, what have I learned about the process? Well, what I actually learned was that it was expensive. And yeah, that it was a lot longer than 5 minutes to take care of it. And I don't even really even know what the app coupon is or something like that. And so every time you think about that, and you always want to know too that why is it? Why is it that some bills take longer than 5 minutes to take care of them? And typical. They might say that, yeah, well, for sure, if there's new services coming in, for sure, then that's usually what happens. And they say that, yeah, go ahead and look at the graphics. I'm like, go ahead and look at these pictures right here, just to kind of get an idea of how it all works. But everybody might say that, yeah, well, for sure, almost everything is not really the same as from what you learned from home, right? You used to watch TV from home, and it sure seems that way, that's not the real thing. That's not the same thing as compared to actually going there and taking care of it. But almost everybody's going to probably say that, yeah, but whenever you look at a commercial advertisement like this right here, what's one thing you can remember about it? And yeah, well, there's a lot more details about that, but still, the first thing I would probably tell everybody for sure is that, what's one thing that you can understand about it that maybe not everybody else can understand about it? But anyway, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.